to the Dream 100 Show, the epicenter of influence, collaboration, and exponential growth. You're about to discover the power of relationships. Dream 100 relationships. And you're one relationship away from a totally different business and life. This is your host, Michael Tasner.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Dream 100 Show. I have a really fun guest. She's done everything from stand-up comedy to having her own tech bracelet company to traveling all over the place. She's lived in lots of different places, so she's got lots of fun life experiences that she's here to share. So welcome, Gina Casazza. It is such a pleasure to have you on the Dream 100 Show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So when we were talking, before the show and doing research, you have one of the most unique backgrounds of all the really cool things that you've done. Give our listeners just kind of a little bit more about the behind the scenes journey of kind of how you got to where you are today and talk about some of the fun experiences and such that you've been involved in.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in living life. You get one life. I'm really big into living it to the fullest. And if you want to do something, I believe you should go and do it. I think that we all have ideas, but we really need to execute those ideas. I had this idea to become a children's author and I executed that idea. So many people sit on ideas and they don't follow through on it. Now, I don't think that all ideas should be followed through on, but I think that it's something that you should research and look into. And if really it continues to excite you along the way and along that process, do it, explore it even more and more and more. And that's what I've done most of my life. Since I was 8 years old and wanted to become a baseball player, the first female baseball player out there. And I wrote to the president. I joined a baseball team. I submerged myself and then, transitioned to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I also believe you don't need to have one thing. You don't need to be one thing. You could explore and all different avenues and stuff and decide what works. And you could be successful in every area. I believe that success is such a broad word. And it's what it means to you, how you define it. And when I look at myself and I look at all the things I've done, well, I experienced life. And to me, that's success. So for me, I've done stand-up comedy. I've been an actress. I've worked in film and TV. I'm a children's author. I'm currently writing a memoir. I have my own podcast. I own a tech jewelry company. There's so much that I have done and I continue to do. And yeah, so it's an interesting background and it makes for great stories.
No, definitely. And I love your notion of, get out there. Stop talking about the idea and actually make it happen. I use a phrase that I didn't coin by any means, but I think mentors before me have said, someday never comes. So a lot of people, they sit into analysis paralysis. And way back when my first marketing agency, almost all of my clients were speakers and authors. And I would go to their conferences and I would sit in the back of the room so I could immerse myself in their content and get closer to their customer. And what I started to realize was there were a lot of people that literally would go to the same exact event, not even there might be an intro event and that's $1,000 and then a mastery level and another, the different levels. And I noticed there was a lot of people, they would go to the same one. So if it was every quarter or twice a year, why are you coming to this one? And I feel like I just saw you. Oh, yeah, I was here. And they like the conference high, but they never go and execute that. So obviously you're living proof that you can get out there and make it happen. Tell us about, I don't think I've had interviewed someone on here that has done stand-up comedy. How did you get into stand-up comedy? Tell us that story.
It was interesting. I went to go watch a friend at the Comedy Store in LA. He was performing in one of the side rooms. And I remember sitting there laughing, watching all the other comics. And I just decided I'm going to do that. And then I got into the car and was driving home with my friends. And I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the stand-up comedy thing. And they were laughed at me. And I was like, give me 4 weeks. I'll be up on that stage. And again, they just laughed and was like, okay. And so I'm also a person that when I put it out there, I go for it. Like I at least attempt it. I'm just not going to be like, I'm going to do it and then I don't do it. So I just started researching. The best part about living in today's world is there's so much information out there. So I started researching and looking how to write jokes, how to do all that stuff. And man, did I struggle. I struggled so much. I had like 2 weeks before my open mic, like stand up thing that I was going to do. And it just so happens I was working for Penny Marshall at the time. And a friend of mine was doing she premiered her movie. She was in a movie and she said, hey, do you want to come to the theater? We're going to go watch it. A friend of mine's going to come too. We'll have dinner. I said, excellent. Yeah, count me in. So I go and one of her friends happens to be a former stand-up comic. And I said, oh my God, I'm about to go up on stage. And she's like, well, what are your jokes? I go, I have nothing. I don't even know what I'm doing. I have no idea. And she was like, I can help you. And I'm like, and she happened to be a Laker fan. And I was like, Penny Marshall has floor seats to Lakers. I said, I'll trade you these floor seat tickets for you to come to Penny's when I'm working. And we can you could teach me how to write stand-up comedy. And she was like, down. Yeah, 100%. So she came over and she taught me the basic formula for writing a stand-up joke. And then I was like, amazing, went home and I just did everything that she said. And then I sent it over to her and she's like, this is great. And I said, excellent, I'm ready. So then I took these jokes, I practiced and practiced and practiced. And then I went up on this open mic stage and I had like 14 friends show up, which never happens, by the way, on an open mic. And I went up, I was like last at the open mic too, which was like crazy because in LA, it's different in other parts of the world. Like from Long Island, it's not like this, but in LA, after you do your open mic, usually you just leave. So nobody was in the audience except for my 14 friends. And I did the stand-up comedy. And then the producer of that open mic was like, that was really good. How long have you been doing comedy? I've never seen you around. I was like, that was my first time. And then he booked me for his show. And then that same week, another producer booked me for the exact same stage that I saw my friend at. And I said, I'll be up there in 4 weeks. And I happened to be up on that exact same stage 4 weeks later that I said. So that's how I ended up doing stand-up comedy.
I love it. It's interesting because in helping move that along, I mean, it was a relationship game. So you made a relationship and kind of leveraged the Lakers tickets, which is I like that idea a lot. How did you get involved with Penny Marshall?
So, well, I'm piggyback on what you just said, though, about the relationship game. At the time, I was also working in a restaurant. I was working with Penny and at a restaurant at the same time. And Nick Swartzen used to come in the restaurant all the time. And I showed him my stand-up comedy. When I told him, I was like, yeah, I just did the stand-up, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I have a show Friday night. Why don't you come open for me? And I was like, what? And he was like, come open for me. Yeah. And I was like, he's like, I'll give you 8 minutes. I'm like, I only have 4 minutes. He goes, whatever you got, just come do it. And I was like, amazing. Yeah, I'll do it. And that was like my biggest show. Like I got paid, like it was incredible. And I was like, not much. It was like $25. So it was my first paid show. And it was my first show. It was my second show. Technically, the open mic doesn't count. Then I did that other one. And then that Nick Swartzen show. So it was my second show ever. And I opened. And that's how, the relationship game works. It just right place, right time. Telling people, executing what you're going to say to do, like taking action for it. People tend to respect that. And he's an amazing guy, an amazing comic, super supportive human being. And I'm forever grateful. And then from there, like I said, the Penny Marshall job, that happened. I found her off Craigslist. They were looking for a director's assistant and they didn't say who. It just said like celebrity or something. And I was like, all right, I will apply to this position. And it was in Los Angeles. And then they called and they were like, hey, we'll set you up for an interview. And I said, okay. And they gave me the house and I showed up and she wasn't there. And it was like her live-in assistant and the assistant I was replacing. So she had 2 assistants. So one was her live-in who did everything for her in her personal life. And then the other one was the business assistant, which is what I was stepping in for, the executive role. So they didn't tell me who she was. They didn't say anything about her. They didn't say what her name was. They said nothing. And then I left, and then they called me the next day and they were like, she wants to meet with you. Like, you're one of the finalists in this, job offer. And I show up and I have no idea who she is. From the shows I watched Laverne and Shirley. My dad's a huge Odd Couple fan, so I've seen every episode of The Odd Couple at least 10 times. So I knew who she was, but when you saw her that time, I mean, she was like 300 pounds heavier than she's been on screen. She was just different, person than back then. And I still had no idea. And she's like smoking in the kitchen, sitting there and saying just nothing but everything. Like, the way Penny talked was very interesting. The first time you hear her talk, you really don't know what she's saying. And she is, she won't like say full names too. Like, she just expects you to know. Like, she'd be like, oh yeah, Chris came over the this, and and then we did Laverne and Shirley together, and it's like, I don't know who Chris is. Like, it was like that. So I'm just sitting there, still no idea who she was, but she was like, there's this Whitney Houston documentary that they're interviewing me for. I directed her and Preacher's Wife, so they're gonna come over tomorrow. Could you come and be a part of that? And I was like, yeah, no problem. So then when I walked out, that was the only information I had. So I was like, Preacher's Wife, director, and then I looked and I saw on IMDb, I was like, oh, this is Penny Marshall. And I was like, she looks so different. And then I was like super excited because I was like, I hope I get to meet Gary. I was super stoked, like, because he's a legend. He was a legend, still is a legend, even though he's passed. Like, his legacy lives on. And I couldn't wait to be a part of that the Marshall family that they got going on.
That's crazy to think that I still use Craigslist, and I actually, oddly enough, my first marketing agency largely moved as a result of Craigslist. I would post in the barter section, like looking to barter website design for Eck, and then I would get all these random things. But what ended up happening was a lot of people would be like, I don't have anything to barter with, but I need a website. And like, it just kind of spiraled. So that's crazy to think that they threw it up on Craigslist and you kind of got your foot in the door there. That's awesome. And
I will tell you, that is not the first Craigslist job. I got Dancing with the Stars on Craigslist.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So
crazy.
For all those listeners out there, Craigslist.
That's crazy. Wow. I mean, it's probably one of those that you're probably not getting the standard people that would apply. Like, if you're going through a formal application, like, there's certain people that probably apply for every type of acting role through traditional means, but Craigslist, you might find someone that maybe they're just getting a start. Or that's interesting. What a cool story. How long did you work there for?
Dance with the Stars. I think I did 3 or 4 seasons. And then when I worked for Penny, I worked with Penny until she died. So I worked, technically I worked for 1 year with her, left, went to work for this other TV show called Wrecked. It was just the pilot. So it was just 6 months. When that show ended, her new assistant left. Was like, this place is nuts. I'm leaving. And they called and they were like, you lasted a year. We really liked you. Would you come back? And I was like, yeah, I'll come back, but this is my demand list. and
You're writer.
Got everything I asked for, and I stayed until she passed away.
Oh, yeah. What a cool story.
Yeah.
I'm assuming as a result of that relationship that you had with that family, that opened up other doors and things like that for you as well. I liked even going back to your story in the restaurant of just key takeaway for me and for our listeners is that you're telling other people what you're looking to do. So rather than just like keeping it into yourself, I'm so nervous about getting into stand up. I mean, you're putting it out there. Hey, like I'm looking to do X. Like you're putting the affirmation, you're making the affirmations, you're putting it out into the universe. But just that's how a lot of those relationships start. And it just, everything starts to happen for a reason. So love that. Transition a little bit. I love your tech bracelet. I wear a lot of tech, use a lot of tech. I mean, way back when I used to put my own buy computer parts and put my computers together. So I'm a pretty tech savvy person. But tell us a little bit more about kind of the inspiration around the tech bracelets and kind of how that company's been going, and give our listeners some more details there, if you will.
Yeah, so I had a company prior to this one. It was an aromatherapy crystal bracelet company. And with the bracelet, you got an essential oil with it and an affirmation card. And it was a whole package of you see the bracelet, you feel the bracelet, you see the bracelet, you feel the bracelet. You're gonna hear that affirmation in your mind, and it's gonna help shift you into that emotion or whatever that affirmation is. So if it's like, calm and you're stressed out, it's like when you see it, when you feel it, when you smell it, you're hearing I am calm, which then is going to help put you in that calm state. And crystals are really, really big. People are really into crystal bracelets. And, the crystals are supposed to align your energy with the energy of the crystals to help, put you in that place. And my brother, not into any of that stuff, but he's into the tech world. And he was like, you people and those crystals, thinking the energy and whatever. He's like, because it's fine if you want to think that, but why don't you actually give people what you're saying? And I go, what do you mean? And he was like, well, why don't you use NFC technology and create a charm and that way they could tap it to the phone and they can get all the tools that your bracelet claims it does. So if it's the calm bracelet, keep it the aromatherapy, keep the feel, see, touch, when they're stressed out, but then they also have the tools to then move into that place of peace and calm and, less anxiety. So, and these are them. I constantly wear them. And so this charm right here, if I can see it, that I'm wearing, it's a black onyx charm. It was really important for me too to use real crystals. Like nothing is synthetic, nothing is fake. So it was just a process because they all told me NFCs can't be on metal. NFCs are the chip that I wanted was way too tiny to connect to the phone. And yeah, we have it connects. I think it connects well, but could it be better? Of course it could be better. But sometimes, there's some, I don't want to say, sometimes it takes a little bit to read, it's not like a 1 second read and sometimes it's a 1 second read. So either way, you could connect to the wellness hub if you don't want to tap your bracelet. Or if you don't have your bracelet on and you're like, I need to go to that wellness hub, you can still do that. Or if you're at work on your computer and you want to listen to our focus meditation while you're working, or do an email apnea breathing exercise before you open up your emails. You can do all that without having to tap your bracelet to your phone. You can access it on the computer and stuff like that. The bracelet is just that tool, and it has that NFC technology where it can tap to your phone and you can use that as a fun feature. But the whole purpose of it is the wellness hub that you go to. And that gives you meditations, breathing exercises, printable journals, motivational tips, exercises around your bracelet theme. And we have 4 bracelets: Calm, Love, Joy, and Inspired. And it doesn't matter which bracelet you get, you still get access to all the content. And we constantly expand. We're doing guided meditations this month. This summer, we're doing recipes like smoothies, smoothie bowls, mocktails. We're going to be going to workouts later this winter. So, and we add to it all the time. We're constantly adding new journals, new this and new that. And I absolutely love it. Like I created the product for me. I created this bracelet company prior to Omnia for me because I, in my 20s, was like hormonal, couldn't control emotions, like overthinking all the time, like hot mess. I would be in reaction mode 24/7. And I was like, this is great. I cannot live like this. Like stress kills. Reacting like this, like it's going to wreck the insides of my body. I need to learn how to gain control of all this. It's like, what if I had a tool that helped me? Like a tool that helped me where when I was about to spiral, I could stop myself and get back into where I want to be. Or a tool that when I was spiraling and I was in that hot state, I had a tool that can help me get back to where I need to be, because everybody else around me is just going to fuel that emotion and that fire and those reactions. So I need to be able to do it myself. So that's how I ended up creating the product. And I absolutely I love the Wellness Hub. I use it every day. Like, I don't even care. I'm like, if nobody else uses it and it's just me, it was worth it. Like, it was worth creating. And it's surprisingly doing well. Like, it does really well at festivals. I started in the festival circuit to test out the product. It does well there because you can show people, you know, when you have a product that nobody knows about because it's the first of its kind, the world's first smart crystal bracelet out there. People are confused by that. And they're thinking it monitors your heart rate. They're thinking all this other stuff. They're not really understanding the product. And sometimes it's I show it in videos online and stuff, but sometimes it's a bit hard to connect. So when I do it in person, and then it just grows from there because you got that purple cow, one person is like a big fan of it, and then it just kind of spirals and spirals and spirals, and then it grows from there.
Is there a relationship that has helped move that business forward exponentially for you that you came about? So nothing there yet. It's being able to demonstrate it, but then obviously to your point, people start to see it and it kind of grows from there.
Exactly. Yeah. Right now it's like word of mouth. It's showing the product, getting out there in festivals, in showcases, going to stores personally and showing them the product and how it works and things like that. So it's really right now one of those, I'm introducing it, but also understanding like as someone who's growing a company, it takes time. Like it's a slow burn, especially if you don't have investors, if you don't have funding, if you're doing it all yourself, it's a big learning curve. There's a lot of frustration. I'll tell you one story real quick. The Wellness Hub. I had to hire a coder to code the Wellness Hub. He did what I asked. However, I didn't really research. I researched, but I didn't really research. And I kind of trusted this person. I told him what I wanted. And he was like, oh yeah, we'll do this app and we'll make it WordPress and we'll do this and do that. And I was like, oh, okay. Then he creates it. It's super slow, barely works, bugs all the time, issues. And here I blew a couple of thousands of dollars on this Wellness Hub. And every single time it has a bug, I have to go back to him and he's hundreds, almost $1,000 per visit. I mean, I was like, this is insane. Like, what do you mean? So I'm like, the money that I have needs to go into the marketing at this point. Like it can't keep going into the product. So long story short, I shut everything down. I said, we're done, shut it down. And I don't have the money to hire a new coder and to trust someone else again. So I had to trust myself. And I spent 6 months learning how to code. I built the app myself and I hired a tutor to meet with me once a week to go over everything. And then as it got more and more busier, I needed questions. He assisted me. But I remember the first time I met with him and I'm like, listen, I just lost a couple of thousand. I don't have the money to build this code. I really want to get this product up and going. Like everything's set except for this. And he was like, no problem. And I'm like, I get 6 months, like summertime, the festivals, like I have to test the product this month to see if it's worth it. So summertime's like the best time to do that because of the festival circuit. It's a great time to test your market. So I was like, it has to get done by then. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. What language do you want to code in? And I was like, English. And he was like, no, like React, JavaScript, CSS. And I was like, I've never even heard of those countries. What do you mean? And he was like, no, that's tech language. And I was like, and he was like, oh my God, like, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this in 6 months. This is a challenge. It's a subscription-based app, and I go, well, I'm up for the challenge. And I did it. In 6 months, we launched and I was able to test the market in the summer and at the festival circuit. And it did very well. And I was like, okay, I have something here. I could continue.
Love it. I mean, you're definitely extremely resourceful. I mean, you go and figure something out and make it happen. Where would be a good resource or book or course or something that you would suggest our listeners to go and read or watch or learn about?
Well, there's so many out. It really just depends on what you want, what you're going for. I think marketing's super important. And, building, I think it's called, we're not live, so I could do this.
Yeah.
I read it. It's actually a really good one because I do think that branding's really important. It's something we really don't think about. And Marketing Made Simple, I really enjoyed. I think all the books by Donald Miller are really good. He has How to Grow Your
Story Brand.
Yeah, social media for your brand, marketing your brand. I think his stuff is really great. It's a really good starting point, and it's super informative. And They give exercises too. So like in the book. So I think that's a great starting point.
Love it. I always like to ask, this is my final question, from a legacy standpoint, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as someone who is really kind, someone who helped others and didn't, need anything in return, just, was there and kind. I remember your birthday, just that right there is, I think, kind of important. And I send thank you notes at the end of the year to people that have impacted me. And sometimes throughout the year, I just think about that person and I send a text message and I just say, hey, I've been thinking about you. I hope you're doing great. I like to surprisingly call people. People don't like to do that these days. Just randomly out of the blue, check in on people, see how they're doing. One of the biggest pet peeves of mine is when people are like, I'm too busy. Like, you're not too busy. You just are telling me that I'm not a priority. And I never want to say that to people. I never want to be like, hey, I'm too busy for a call. I'm too busy for a text. It's like, no, I can make it a priority. I could do it. I can make you a priority. I could do it on my drive home. I could, there's plenty of times where you can spread kindness and do something for someone else. And usually like a phone call, a thinking about you, a text, a thank you note, things like that really do go a long way.
I love it. I mean, it's interesting because I started asking this question over the last couple of weeks. I expected people to be giving really robust answers. And I love your answer of I want to be remembered as someone who is kind. I've had other guests say he just wants to be remembered as someone who was useful and was able to help. So I love the simple answers, but they're the most meaningful. Where can our guests go to learn more about you? Where can they go to check out your tech bracelets?
So our wellness hub, discoveromniaelevate.com, is where you can sign up into our wellness hub. You don't need to subscribe to get some content there and test it out and see if you like it. And then from there, there's a link to the bracelet if you wanted to purchase a bracelet at discoveromnia.com. But I highly recommend starting at the Wellness Hub, discoveromniaelevate.com. It's totally free to sign up and check out. And then from the website, you're welcome to contact me and say hi.
Love it. Gina, it was a pleasure getting to know you and hearing your story. Lots of really fun, amazing stories. Listeners, make sure you go and check out Gina's bracelets. I'm going to go and order one for my wife and for myself and my kids. Appreciate you, Gina. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.